Hey everybody, Mr. Moppin again with another APUSH video. Once again, we're taking a look at topic 6.7, looking at the labor movement of the late 19th century. And we mentioned previously that, out of a sense of, being exploited financially, being, no longer having a real emotional connection to their job, no longer really having a sense of ownership over, their workplace experience, and many other factors, we will start to see the formation of unions on a broader scale in the late 19th century. And in reaction to that, we are going to be seeing management try to thwart that in many different ways. We already mentioned the use of thugs like the Pinkertons to try to physically intimidate workers to dissolve unions and get back to work. And we're going to elaborate on that now a little bit. When we talk about, some additional things that management is going to be willing to use is what we call replacement workers. A replacement worker would be brought in, for example, if the workplace went on strike, and they were just brought in to replace them. Now, the name for these replacement workers, the nickname that unions will use for these replacement workers, are known as scabs. You know how like a scab, after you, let's say you skin up your knee, and that scab forms on it. It's kind of like that replacement skin. That's going to be the name associated with it. So, to be called a scab by a union worker, that was certainly a derisive term to kind of send the message that you're a sellout to management, and that you don't care about your fellow workers. We also know that, business owners and managers across America are going to have a lot more financial abilities to use the newspapers and use the media to kind of create a narrative that unions are associated with radical political extremism, that they are unpatriotic, they are un-American, they're dangerous to free market capitalism. And one of the things that unions are going to be challenging to kind of overcome is this stereotype that, unions don't care about America, unions don't care about freedom, unions, are associated with communism and socialism and anarchism and all that kind of stuff. And for, kind of your, typical run-of-the-mill American, maybe living in a small town in the Midwest, you tend to start to get a negative, association with the idea of unions. So that's going to be something that unions are going to be struggling to overcome. Something else that management is not going to be afraid to use as a tactic is the use of a lockout. Now, a strike is when workers refuse to work. They may show up at the factory and, refuse to, actually do their job. A lockout is kind of the reverse of that from a management perspective. A management tactic of a lockout is where, as the name implies, you literally lock up the factory and you prevent the employees from coming into work. Now, yeah, it's a very drastic move because, yeah, the factories are not, operating, machines are not operating, and therefore you're not making product, which then inhibits your ability to make a profit. But it can be used as a means to put pressure on workers to, dissolve their union, capitulate in their demands, yada, yada, yada. Because, well, in a lockout, guess what you're not doing if you're an employee? You're not working. And if you're not working, you're not earning a paycheck. And so that can be used. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, hold on a second. Isn't a strike also a situation where employees are not working and therefore not getting paid? You're right. That's true also. So why would a union try to use that tactic? Well, in many respects, strikes versus lockouts are kind of a game of, chicken in many respects. Management will want to use a lockout if they think that that can, break a union. You know what I mean? That they, as the business owners, can withstand the shutdown better than the workers can. And if a union does a strike, they're playing a game of chicken in the sense of, okay, we think that we can outlast the management in the sense of, we can survive, and the managers are so focused on, making more and more money, which is now not happening, that management will capitulate. So lockouts versus strikes are just, ways of playing chicken in these, in these situations. Something else that management would be more than willing to use is the tactic of blacklisting. Now, blacklisting is basically taking somebody that you find to be problematic, dangerous to what you're trying to do. So in other words, union leaders and things like that, and not only firing them, but then, distributing their name, disseminating their name to other factories across that city, maybe even that state, and basically telling other employers, do not hire this person. This person is a troublemaker. This person's a union organizer. He's a rabble-rouser. Do not hire this person. And if you basically get blacklisted, then you become unhireable. And that might make you, have to move cities. It might, keep you in permanent poverty. So it's a very powerful thing. Yellow dog contracts are written promises that employers might force prospective employees to sign that would basically, in a legal document, say that they would not join a union, and that if they attempted to join a union, they would be terminated. This would be a way for business owners to, have the legal, easy grounds to terminate somebody, saying, here, they signed a contract saying they were going to join a union, and now they're trying to join a union, so they're out the door. You also had, the use of court injunctions. And one of the big things you want to understand in this, this time period with the conflicts between management and labor is that there is no doubt that at this time, pre-progressive movement, if there's a side that government is siding with in management versus labor, it is management. Absolutely. So you had a friend and you had an ally in government. And one of those things that government can do for you is have courts, have judges slap injunctions on, what labor unions might be trying to do, like, putting an injunction on a strike. In other words, hey, this strike is, violating the law in XYZ ways, and now we're going to use troops to break up your strike. And so you had that in many respects in your back pocket if you're a business owner, and labor didn't have those kinds of connections. So, management had a major ally in government where labor did not at this time. And when you add all this stuff up, in many respects, these are all, tactics and ways to achieve the ultimate goal, the strategy of trying to, maintain what's called an open shop. Now, open shop does not mean like open for business. Open shop means that it's a workplace that does not have a union. That, in other words, anybody can work there. There's no union rules. You don't have to join a union to work there. That's what you ultimately want. You do not want the opposite of that, which is a closed shop, which we'll get to in a moment. So let's go ahead and, take a look now at the other side of this and look at what labor is going to be using as tactics to achieve their strategic goals. One of the things that they can do, besides, organized strikes, is engage in boycotts. A boycott is when you refuse to buy a product or use a service. And so the idea being is that, labor groups could, try to, rally the community behind them and say, hey, they're exploiting us. And if they exploit us, they're going to exploit you. And let's send a message to this company. And, a way to kind of send a message where they'll really have to listen to us is hit them in the pocketbook and therefore refuse to buy their products. And so, that's going to be something that is going to be used. And note, this is not going to be just a tactic used by labor unions. It'll be used by civil rights groups and others in the future as well. A lot of the tactics used by labor groups involve some type of demonstrations. It could be marches, it could be parades, at the workplace, it could be picketing. Picketing is where you're basically holding signs outside the workplace. A lot of times if workers have been locked out or if they're on strike, they'll, engage in picketing where they'll walk outside of the factory holding up signs saying, exploited for my labor, demanding a living wage, power to, the working class, yada, 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 to let people know on the street, hey, here's what's going on. Here's why I'm not working. Be aware of what's happening at this factory. Once again, this is all kind of done to gain, support on a broad-based level, with the idea being is that if they have support, on a popular broad-based level, that could get more help from governments at a time where they weren't getting any help from governments. A Wildcat Strike, as you see here at the bottom, is basically a strike that takes place without it being formally organized by a labor union. When a union goes on strike, it's not just striking workers just, stopping working. It's an organized decision. So, union leaders would meet with the rank and file employees and say to them, hey, negotiations have broken down with management. They're going to be cutting our wages. They won't listen to us, yada, yada, yada. And so we're going to, vote as a group. We're going to talk about it. And we're going to vote as a group whether or not we want to go on strike. So we're kind of unified as one entity making this decision. A Wildcat Strike is just a, kind of a, not random, but just spontaneous strike that would just emerge. It's not organized. It's not voted on. It's just workers saying, you know what, I'm not working. Obviously, as a union, you want to have organized strikes as opposed to, Wildcat Strikes just popping up. And ultimately, the goal for labor, in contrast to management's desire for an open shop, is to have what's a closed shop. And closed shops do not mean closed for business. Closed shops mean that they want to be able, through the strength of their union, to work out deals with management, work out contracts with management that would include the stipulation that for any employee to work at that factory, the employee must join the union. Now, why is that so important? Why is that so powerful? Well, if you have a closed shop and every employee has to join the union, now that union speaks for every single worker at that location. And they can then negotiate with management as one singular voice. And that is important, because if you don't have that one singular voice and you don't have a union, for example, then what happens, and even if you do have with some employees in the union and some not, what business owners would then do in negotiations is basically pit the workers off one another. If they're managing with the union saying, hey, we're going to be demanding $2 a day, they go, well, okay, but, we got these other, workers here, that aren't in the union, they're willing to work for $1.50 a day. And so, that makes it harder for unions to be able to achieve their goals when they've got fellow workers that are kind of undercutting them. So having that closed shop is going to be important. And, we still see closed shops today in many places. For example, if you want to work at Kroger, like many teenagers do, you have to join the union, and you have to pay union dues. And that's the reason, for that. So be aware of, these different tools that are going to be used to try to achieve their goals, be it management or labor. You can see here, this is a little bit of a tense conversation between a striker confronting a replacement working scab, so to speak. All right, we're going to go ahead and leave it there for now. When we come back next time, we're going to be taking a look at the formation of some very powerful national unions and be able to contrast why some will be successful and others not so much. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.